G'day everyone. Let's see what the weather's got in store for us for the next few days. Once again, looking at the Euro model via windy.com. We'll just let it play through, and as you can see, we're in for a fairly stable time. Light trade winds across the central Queensland coast and very light conditions down the New South Wales coast as the high pressure moves across the Tasman towards the top of New Zealand. We have a bit of interesting activity coming up towards the bottom southwest of WA, and a lovely little trough line coming in towards the Pilbara Gascoyne part of the world. There's a low pressure starting to form by this weekend out in the Tasman Sea, going to push the winds up and maybe a bit of moisture up through where we are in this part of the world as another cold front approaches South Australia, Victoria and Tasmania. Looking nothing untoward at the moment, just we're all hanging out for a bit of moisture, and I'm sure the graziers out west of the ranges are definitely looking for it. An interesting little low developing up here just above Exmouth, coming down along the Western Australian coast. It may throw a bit of moisture across the country over to where we are. Only time will tell. Now we'll have a look at the forecast for rain across Australia. As you can see, with that associated trough out there in the Indian Ocean, there's a fair bit of moisture with it and a little bit of rotation happening out there even this late in the season. It's not going to develop into anything serious, but it shows it's still possible to happen. Bit of moisture with that cold front and trough coming across New South Wales, Victoria, stretching up into the southern half of Queensland, and you never know, by the weekend we may see a few more showers come through this part of the world as this system pushes out into the Coral Sea off the southeast Queensland coast, and you notice it starts to develop fairly quickly out off northern New South Wales, starting to rotate, starting to tighten up and starting to produce a lot more moisture out over the ocean. Of course, the ocean needs a bit more rain, but it's heading across towards New Zealand where they're going to cop a bit more weather, get a bit of a bumpy ride for those out sailing on the water around that part of the world, as that front I mentioned earlier comes up to the southwestern Australia, and this low pressure, the trough out here in the Indian Ocean, is just hanging around heading towards Exmouth. Only time will tell how much moisture we will get out of this. Now we'll have a look at the waves. The wave forecast, which coincide with what the wind is doing. Tight in against the coast, over on the east coast of Australia, there's not much happening as far as waves go. So it'll be a good time for all of the cruisers, the yachts and motor yachts heading north to start doing that, because it's going to make the bar crossings a little bit safer to get over. But as the week goes on into the weekend, you can see a little bit starting to happen down on the south to mid New South Wales coast. Always something happening down here in the southwest of WA and stretching over into the Great Australian Bight and through into Bass Strait. And this low pressure that was pushing the rain across towards New Zealand is going to push a few waves across the east coast, only for a short period. Into about the middle of next week, it's going to start flattening off, making for very easy conditions. The swell, like the waves, like the seas, it's going about the same direction, and there's not a hell of a lot in it. Out off the east coast, you got between 2 and 6 metres, but you have to go well offshore to find that. Probably about 50-60 miles outside Fraser Island, and by the weekend you're going to have to be a lot further offshore than that to find anything that's going to give you a bumpy ride. Bit of swell hitting the southwest coast of WA with that associated cold front that's coming through, and it's going to push right up into the Gulf country eventually of South Australia, southeastern South Australia, western Victoria, and eventually pushing in through Bass Strait. Bass Strait can be a nasty piece of water when it wants to be, but the rest of the country is looking pretty flat, pretty benign, pretty easy conditions for the ones out on the water. Anyway, everybody, stay safe out there. Cheers, and I'll catch you next time I'm looking at you.